Hey there, this is Mr. Articulate. Thanks for clicking on my video. I make and upload a video to YouTube every day of between 5 and 10 minutes length, and my goal when I record each video is to practice the skills that I will need to become a more articulate person in my day-to-day life. Lately, my specific goal when I make these videos is to work on my editing ability, meaning I often will talk for several minutes on whatever topic I've chosen for a video before I actually get to the point that I had been imagining I would be tackling right from the beginning, and I would chalk that up to poor advanced editing ability on my part, a poor ability to edit out pieces of content before I say them and then realize that I didn't need to say them. So that's what I'm working on right now. My topic for the next few minutes here is going to be an aspect of the current battle going on between the Trump administration and Harvard University. To summarize, for those of you who don't know, the Trump administration objects to a wide range of practices that Harvard has been engaging in for the past decade or so, quite possibly with some of these things a lot longer, but certainly in all aspects of our culture, these practices have really ratcheted up the last 10 years. And those include hiring practices and promotion practices that involve giving preferential hiring and promotion treatment to members of certain races as opposed to members of other races, and admissions practices which favor the admitting of students of certain racial backgrounds, again, above students of other racial backgrounds, and also practices on campus, such as having special symposia or programs or even graduation ceremonies that only members of certain races are allowed to participate in. So the Trump administration objects to all of these things, and the federal government contributes roughly $9 billion annually to Harvard. I imagine a lot of that money that we as taxpayers contribute probably goes towards superfluous ends, but some of it does go toward supporting legitimately useful and worthwhile research. And in addition to these taxpayer spendings that we send to Harvard, like pretty much all colleges and universities in the United States, enjoys tax-exempt status, which, when you have as large an endowment as Harvard does, is a huge financial boon. And if this is the battle, or I guess to put in final context what the battle is, President Trump began by demanding that Harvard cease these practices or risk losing out on the federal funds that they've been receiving. And Harvard has basically declined to change the policies that the administration objects to, and therefore is now at risk of having the federal money taken out of their coffers, or rather not put into their coffers. But in the past couple of days, the administration has been making a second insinuation, which is that if Harvard does not cease the practices that I've talked about that the administration objects to, that Harvard might have its tax-exempt status stripped away. And that is what I want to talk just a little bit about, because it's very interesting, and I just want to say that I have read up on the subject, and there is actually a perfectly valid legal basis on which Harvard's tax-exempt status could be revoked in light of these practices that they have engaged in. And because I think a lot of people don't like the idea of the government stopping sending funds to Harvard on the basis of Harvard's practices. But when it comes to the tax-exempt status, I'm seeing a lot more arguments just saying that the president is simply not allowed to take that action. But in fact, here's what it comes down to. This is the basic argument from the administration's standpoint. First, and this is just a naked truth that our whole society has collectively decided to ignore for many years now, but it is nevertheless a bare, plain truth. Every time that Harvard hires someone to their faculty or staff on the basis, or at least the partial basis, of the racial background of that employee, Harvard is and has been violating the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act forbids employers to give any preferential treatment in hiring decisions on the basis of race. Likewise, whenever Harvard admits a student and factors race into that decision, they are violating the Civil Rights Act. And likewise, whenever they sponsor events on campus that only members of certain races are allowed to attend, they are violating the Civil Rights Act. This is simply the truth. The plain text of the relevant statutes within the Civil Rights Act make explicit that you cannot do any of the things that Harvard has done. And yet, so many of the institutions in our society have done just that for a long time now. So, you take that as your first step, and you only need one other step in addition to the Civil Rights Act itself. And that is a Supreme Court precedent that was provided to us from a case that I believe was ruled on in the 1980s involving Bob Jones University, which basically had certain segregating practices on their campus. And the Supreme Court ruled in that case that a institution, although it belongs to a class that is typically by default put in non-exempt status, can have its non-exempt status stripped if it is engaging in practices that are in defiance of federal law or are in defiance of the national interest. And those two things combined actually put Harvard in extreme danger of having their tax-exempt status stripped from them. And it's a pretty airtight case, because like I said, there is no ambiguity in the Civil Rights Act statutes that are in play here. All these things that Harvard does absolutely do put them afoul of the law. Not every law is enforced equally. These laws have not been enforced hardly at all for a long time now, but nevertheless, they are laws on the books, they are laws of the land, and they are being violated on a near daily basis at Harvard. And the Supreme Court has ruled specifically with regards to a different university that tax-exempt status is contingent on that university serving the public interest and adhering to federal law. So if the Trump administration wants to strip tax-exempt status from Harvard, they will succeed. And it won't be because of some banana republic chicanery. It won't be because of some tyrannous trampling of democratic norms. It will be with two very sturdy fists, one being the Civil Rights Act, the other being a Supreme Court precedent that was ruled on within living memory of probably most Americans. So that's it for today's video. If you stuck around till the end, thank you for watching. I will be back tomorrow with another video, and as for you, I hope you have a great rest of your day or night.